How you doing, everybody? Listen, I hope you're all well. It's Thursday, and it's the 3rd of February 2011, and it's in the middle of the evening. And I just really wanted to talk about this Egyptian matter that's going on at the moment, and it's an extraordinary set of affairs. And the reason I want to deal with it is a few people emailed me, and then I was talking to a friend of mine last night about it later on the telephone, and he asked me what I think, and I said I'd make a little video about it. So this is my halfpenny source for what it's worth. They've had 3 presidents in that state of Israel, or state of Egypt, from the 50s, and all of them have been involved in the military. You had Colonel Nasser, we all know, and then you had the present lad here, this Hosni Mubarak. And then you had, in between them, you had, they were 2 senior officers, Nasser being a colonel, and this other fella being, I think he had the rank of a general in the Air Force. And then you had the Anwar Sadat, who was a sort of a minor military figure. But they've all come from out of a military background, and they have that relationship. They have this particular army that they have. The population in Egypt's over 80 million. And they have a large, very large standing army. And every year they conscript between 500,000 and 1 million people. Imagine that, into the army. So they obviously have an immediate cadre of officers who are professional full-time soldiers to train them. And then what happens is they have a big influx every year, and that they do their serve, and whatever time they serve, 3 or 4 years, and then they process them out the other end. So they have a large standing army. How many of them would actually be ready to do fighting, I don't particularly know. But they have obviously a high regard, and there's obviously a big social interplay between the army and the population at large. Now, this Mubarak man, he's a total dictator. Obviously, he's been in power for 30 years. He's a total agent of the Americans, and he uses Egypt as a strategic ally of America and also Israel. And seemingly it's the third most. It's just behind Saudi Arabia and Jordan as one of the key players for American policy in the Middle East. So whatever happened, and I'm quite prepared to believe it, the gurus on YouTube last night, I was on listening to them, and they seem to believe that these street protests were initiated initially by the Americans. And I'm quite prepared to accept that, because I understand to give them every year, to give a state, to give Egypt around 3 billion. And they'll probably have to give them a lot more to get this one sorted out. However, they give them around $3 billion every year. So he obviously has a large number of senior officers within the Air Force and within the key services in his back pocket, and he pays them off to keep them quiet. And they would have accounts in Switzerland, numbered accounts in Switzerland, all where the money's laundered and all the rest of it. So he must have triggered something, or maybe his succession. He was supposed to give over his, later on this year, he was supposed to give his blessing to his son, and he was supposed to become a president this year or next year. And we don't know what the background to this is. I have my own personal beliefs. I think it's all connected to Iran. But for whatever reason, he's had a big fallout with the Americans. The Americans are either not happy that he's playing ball with them, or whatever. But obviously it's been an ongoing thing for the last 6 months or a year or whatever, and the Americans now have decided to pull the plug on him. And they probably did initiate these street protests, but like all street protests, they gain momentum. They gain their own momentum, and they get very, very quickly out of control. And I think that's what's happened in Egypt. I mean, it's easy to control a couple of thousand people if you've got several hundred key people within it and you're paying them. But it's very, very difficult to control hundreds of thousands of people. And it's very, very difficult to control them when they're talking about a form of democracy that you find alien. I mean, the American form of democracy is corporate democracy. Now, I'm not talking about their constitutional form of democracy. I'm talking about the type of democracy that Americans have through their imperial presence in the rest of the world. It's corporate democracy. It's democracy that supports American big business. Nothing more, nothing less. American imperial policy doesn't give a flying shit about democracy or anything else. They've supported this man for 30 years. This man has run a dictatorial, totalitarian state where people's human rights and liberty are just worthless. And torture is just the de rigueur. It's how the police and the political police conduct their daily business. I mean, imagine falling foul of those people. My God. Last Friday, in the city of Alexandria, over 100 people were killed, were murdered on the streets by the political police and the police. And the army stood by and let that happen. So you've all this situation, as I say, unfolding in front of our eyes. And to watch it last night, it was a bit like voyeurism on my part. I felt it was a little bit like that because I got immediate flashbacks to my own time when I was a young fella in Belfast. And I was back in Divis Street in 1964 in the Divis Street riots. And it was just like yesterday. And then again in 1969 when I was 21, I was back there in West Belfast on the Falls Road, and exactly the same thing. You had, it was so akin, except obviously what happened in the north of Ireland was on a mini scale in comparison with the scale of what's happening there in Egypt. Because this, from a world point of view, is so important and so strategic. I mean, anybody who, I mean, I'm going, as soon as I finish this, I'm going to watch more of it and see what the gurus are saying on YouTube, because this is a defining thing. If this turns bad for the Americans, this could turn bad. I don't think it will. I don't think it will. Because I don't see that these people are focused around these progressive, pro-democratic people. It's too amorphous. Their ideology is too amorphous. Yet, they were able to hold back those neo-fascists last night. These thugs that attacked them with assault rifles and handguns and that last night. So, and they've nothing to defend themselves. All they had was a few stones and some Molotov cocktails. That's all they had. So, I think as history, as what would you call it, populist history and populist politics, it's an extraordinary set of affairs. And I think anybody interested in politics or anybody interested in history or anybody interested in economics should be watching this to see how it unfolds. Because, as I say, I think what will happen is, I think that the Americans are now working on some young general in the background or some young colonel, and they'll give him the authority and the power and the money, and they'll tell him, no, you're our man, go in there. Have you got the support of the army? Have you got the support of the armed services? And if you have, we're behind you. And we give you whatever money you need, but we have to have this settled. We have to get this sorted out. So he'll probably arrive as a hero, as a Superman type. I think he'll appear in the next 4 or 5 days. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone else. But it's happened before like that. So why shouldn't it happen? As I say, the last 3 guys were Mubarak came from the Air Force. He was a leading light in the Air Force. Anwar Sadat was a minor army man. Colonel Nasser was a leading figure within in the army. So it's happened before like it, and they have, as I say, this special relationship with their armed services inside because of it's a conscript army in Egypt, and I think it'll come out of that. And I think whoever it is will be put up. He'll be put up as a sort of an iconic type hero, and he'd say, "I'm going to introduce some type of." What would you call it, constitutional reform, and there's going to be democracy, and probably won't ever fucking happen. Doesn't matter, but it'll sort out the immediate problem. And once it's sorted out, whoever's creating the major problems in that within this ongoing struggle at the moment will probably be quietly dealt with. That's how I'd see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but you see, a lot of people have died, and this thing may have a momentum of its own. It may go another way altogether. It could go away with a civil war. It could go away with a bloody civil war. And if it does go that way, the Americans are in deep, deep doo-doo. The Americans are in deep, deep doo-doo. That will spread throughout the whole Middle East. And their number one client state, which is Saudi Arabia, it's the one that they want to protect. Can you imagine what would happen tomorrow morning? Can you imagine what would happen if that thing spread to Saudi Arabia? The whole world would change overnight. The whole world would collapse overnight. The world as we know would change overnight. Oil would go to $250 a barrel. Probably. Between $200 and $250 a barrel. The whole world would change. So, that's what I think is going to happen. I think a hero is going to be found. He's going to be a military hero of some description. Possibly an Air Force general or whatever. He'll be young, he'll be in his 50s, late 40s, early 50s. And they'll stick him into power. And he'll be a puppet. That's what he'll be. He'll be a puppet. And I would like to think I'm wrong, but being the cynic that I am, we'll see. We'll just see. It's unfortunate, but there you are. That's how world events tend to play out. They've done it in the past, so I think they're going to do it now. Anyway, we'll talk later about this matter. Thank you very much.